I'll bet you that there is nobody in this room who hasn't had to request help at some point in life. It's inevitable if you go on living that you spend a lot of energy sometimes requesting help. Now, sometimes our request for help is about things that we need. Sometimes our very condition invites others to help us out of our need. We all have parents that fed us and clothed us and took care of us before we even knew what our needs were. We've had people look out for us, hopefully. Friends, be aware of the journey we've been taking. And when it's critical, yeah, our friends are there helping us with our needs. Sometimes we have wants. Not just needs, we have wants. And anyone in this economy knows there's a big difference between wants and needs. Sometimes we have requested help for our wants. Sometimes we could be greedy or possessive or just want to acquire the latest thing to satisfy our egos. And there might have been times you've been brash enough to request help from somebody because you have wants. And then there are desires. Desires, I think, are different than needs or wants. Because when you and I have desire, I believe that that is a reaching out towards something that will complete you, towards something that will satisfy your soul. It's beyond the need for something like food or shelter. It's beyond, way beyond, the wanting of power or status or possessions. Desire is about things like love and fulfillment, purpose in life. You can't just pull those things up. You have to desire. And in desiring, very often we ask other human beings for help with our desire. We ask friends, we ask spouses, soulmates. Sometimes we even ask our pets, believe it or not. We ask our churches and our communities and our work situations to help fulfill our desires. And then, we have to be honest. If there really is going to be a desire that any human being can have, well, it's going to have to involve God. If we are talking about mysteries of existence like love and fulfillment, about the satisfaction of the soul, well, we'll just have to take it up with God. And when we do take it up with God, I think we end up going on a journey that we really weren't expecting. All desire comes from God. It's an odd thing to say because human desire can be so messed up and so confused. Even when we want love and fulfillment, even when we want to know that we have a purpose in life, how many times have you and I gone about the whole thing the wrong way? It's quite possible to have a deeply held desire and really blow it, really mess up in pursuit of that desire. Human beings have been doing that for as long as we've been human, and it's what makes history interesting. But in the end, our deepest desires are not fulfilled. Well, with God, desire has a different take. When we say desires are from within, my fulfillment, the love I want, the purpose I need. How different is that to face the Lord of the universe and say, I have desire, and you are the source of my desire. You, Lord, awaken desire within me before I even know it. Before I can even perceive the desire that lives within, you, Lord, know it completely. That's why I love this Old Testament story from the second book of Kings about Naaman, that powerful general of Aram, who's responsible for really attacking the kingdom of Israel. And in the midst of all of this powerful man, this man whose you would think ego would be just as big as anything for all of his prowess, for all of his accomplishments as a man of power, a military man to be feared. You would think that a little thing like some leprosy, like some skin disease, would be small potatoes. A man who possibly has endured wounds from battle himself. But it obviously bugs him. It must have been something that was pretty evident, pretty obvious, if that abducted little Israelite girl was able to say to Aram's wife, you know, there's a cure for this. And that cure is by going to this one holy man in Israel, that place you just conquered. I find it interesting that maybe Naaman was going along just fine with that skin disease. Maybe he was coping, just like you and I sometimes cope with the problems in our lives, these chronic conditions. But here, out of the voice of this one little girl who did not ever have to open her mouth, this abducted child who became a slave to an occupying country, this little girl speaks up. And one can only wonder how the unseen hand of God motivated her to do that. And because this girl, who speaks out of her insignificance, wakes up desire in Naaman for health and wholeness, he then goes to his king and asks to have an appointment with this holy man of Israel. What a terrifying thought. You know, the king of Israel is right. This guy's messing with me. He's trying to pick a fight with me, this king of Aram. How could he possibly expect me to be healing anybody, much less the general that just ran over our country? Yet, Elisha says, hey, there's a prophet here in Israel. It's about time you all admitted it. And so he does invite Naaman over to his house. And it's interesting that Naaman, whose desire has been excited and motivated to go this far, is suddenly very offended when he realizes that Elisha says, well, you know, servant, go out there and tell him to wash in that river. What happens with that desire that Naaman has? It suddenly just goes flat. Surely, Naaman says, surely this holy man would have come out and, done the thing you expect, I guess, faith healers to do, kind of wave his hand over the spot there and invoke the name of God. And, well, it would all be taken care of. Surely, Naaman says, this holy man would come out to meet me. Me. I who have run over this country and abducted its children. I surely deserve better treatment. Surely my needs, my wants are big enough to warrant this holy man making a personal appearance in front of me to heal me. But in truth, it is the desire that's within Naaman's heart that has to be awakened, has been awakened. And now this holy man, Elisha, sends out his servant. And the servant gives that direction to wash in the river Jordan. And in so doing, after much cajoling from his own servants, Naaman's condition is transformed. He is healed and made whole. Isn't it interesting that when we sometimes are tempted to ask for help, tempted to request the assistance of someone or something else with our needs or our wants or even our desires, our pride gets in the way. Our ego gets in the way. It's hard to ask for help sometimes. Oh, if it's something petty, if it's something that we could kind of do without, or if it's something that we really, really want out of profound greed, well, maybe we're willing to stoop a bit. But really, if it's about our desires, those cravings for wholeness and love and fulfillment and transformation in our lives, we are admitting something's missing in here. Something is lacking inside of me, and I am reaching out. My soul, my very being is reaching out for that kind of fulfillment because I don't have it. And you say, my God, I need help with this. And it's tough to say that. It's hard to admit. In the gospel reading today, there comes a clue, at least to me, on this interaction between human ego and pride and God. What happens? A leper comes to Jesus. He doesn't just say, heal me, I need it. He doesn't just walk up in the line because, you know, Jesus healed lots and lots of people. Crowds circled around him, and as they did, no doubt there was no vocal interchange between them at all. Jesus might just have laid hands one on the next. Streams of people, masses of human beings just moving past him as he touched and healed and prayed and invoked the power of God. Something happened with this leper. He kneels before Jesus and he says, if you want to, you can cleanse me. If you want to. How odd is it for this human being whose desire for wholeness and health and life back with the whole community of Israel is placed before Jesus as that kind of a request, if you want. Because it's possible to imagine that God says, no, not this time. It's possible to say, hey, I've been disappointed once with God, I might be disappointed again. I shouldn't make too many tough requests here. If you want to, you can cleanse me. Isn't it odd that this human being turns to this Jesus whom he really doesn't know that well at all, and looking at him motivates desire that is within Jesus himself. If desire is the reaching out of the soul towards something that will complete it and fulfill it, what does this say about the ministry of Jesus in the midst of all of these people who needed healing? We like to imagine that Jesus kind of stands by himself, is his own person. He's come to do the job of saving the world. And that when he's done, away he goes. But in this exchange with this leper, we realize there is some fulfillment here on God's part as well. We can't know what it will ultimately have been. We don't know. Does God have needs? Does God have wants? It's a strange thing to ask of the Almighty Lord of the universe. But does God have desires? Maybe not like you or me. Maybe God is just fine as he is, being the Lord of the universe. But this mystery of entering into our desires means that God is somehow invested in the process. He comes to us and allows exactly that kind of encounter to take place, where the human being faces the Lord of the universe and says, if you want to, you can fulfill my desires. The human being can admit, by God's grace, I have desires only you, Lord, can fulfill. I'm empty inside without you. Well, this kind of a life, this life with God where we turn to God and continually say, Lord, you are the fulfillment of my desires, is in itself a revelation. It reveals that you and I are made for union with God. You and I are made to be joined with God's life, reconciled with God's life, restored and transformed by God's life for the purposes of being the church, the body of Christ on earth. That's an amazing call. That all of this restoration, all of this wonder, all of this desiring that is within us is for the purposes of God's great kingdom here on earth. And Paul imagines it as a race. We hear in this epistle to that troubled church in Corinth, Paul saying, I'm running this race. I'm running to win. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to give it everything I've got. And in the midst of me running this race, I want to make sure you're on that track too. Paul speaks to that troubled church in Corinth, and he wants to remind them they're on the racetrack too. They are running toward union with God, and it feels like that sometimes, doesn't it? When we are motivated by our desires, it is like a discovery of finally the thing I really want in life. And we feel that our souls are running toward God. That's one way to see it. But in truth, I think, when all things have been said and all desires have been met, we will realize that the God who is the source of our desire has been doing most of the legwork for us. We are Christians who have gathered around the cross. We are Christians who celebrate because there was a resurrection. And because the life of Jesus has been restored by God, reaching out toward us to fulfill our desires, we realize whatever running we've been doing has been almost like standing in place compared to the transformative work that Christ has done for us and for this world. This God who places desires within our hearts says, I will meet them. I will fulfill them. You are mine. I am yours. I have met you all the way. Amen.